Hi friends. So last time we have studied the classification of the power amplifiers, and today we are going to introduce one of the type of power amplifier known as Class A push-pull power amplifier. That is a specialty. Class A push-pull power amplifier. Class A, as we have studied the class in the classification, that Class A power amplifier is the power amplifier in which the output current flows throughout full of the AC input cycle, and this is achieved by adjusting the operating point of power transistor exactly on the center of the load line, and that is done by using the voltage divider biasing network. These are the three conditions. If those three conditions are existing in the power amplifier, then we can call it as the Class A power amplifier. Let us see whether those are present or not. Next one is, it is a push-pull power amplifier. Basically, it amplifies the power level, so that's why it is called as the power amplifier. But push-pull, we are going to study the meaning of push-pull when we will study the working of this type of power amplifier. Such a power amplifier that amplifies the input power level by allowing output current to flow throughout full of the AC input cycle. And that is possible provided its operating point is adjusted exactly on the center of the load line. It is adjusted if it makes use of voltage divider biasing network. Look at here in this particular diagram, the resistance R1, resistance R2 and the power supply B.Sc forms the voltage divider biasing network. This makes you aware that its operating point is adjusted exactly on the center of the load line, and due to this, in the output, collector current flows throughout full of the AC input cycle. Thus, it belongs to Class A power amplifier. Such a Class A power amplifier consists of an input transformer T1, TR1 or T1, TR1 having center tapping in the secondary winding, to which the resistor divider biasing network and power supplies are connected. Whereas to its primary winding, input signal whose power level is to be amplified, it is applied. This transformer provides 180-degree out of phase output signal voltage to the base of transistor T1 as well as transistor T2. Transistor T1 and transistor T2 both are of NPN type, whose emitters are going to be connected with each other, whereas in the collector terminal, the primary winding of output transformer TR2 is connected, which is having center tapping in its primary. Means both the collectors of transistor T1 and T2 are connected to the primary winding, whereas in between center tapping of the secondary winding of the TR1 and center tapping of the primary winding of the TR2, the biasing network is connected. Across secondary winding of the transformer T2, known as output transformer, a load is going to be connected. It may be a speaker, it may be headphone, or it may be simply a power resistor which is going to act as a load on the power amplifier. This is what we can call it as, it is a construction of Class A push-pull power amplifier. Once again friends, try to remember, Class A power amplifier consists of two transformers, TR1 and TR2. TR1 is the input transformer, TR2 is the output transformer. Both are impedance matching transformer because it has equal number of turns in the primary and equal number of turns in the secondary, so as to match the impedance of this circuit with each other. to the primary winding of the input transformer. Input signal to be amplified is given. Across its secondary, it provides 180 degree out of phase signal to the base of both the transistor, that is transistor T1 as well as transistor T2, whose emitters are connected with each other, and it is grounded. Obviously, the collector of both the transistors are connected to the primary winding of the output transformer TR2, whereas the center tapping of the secondary winding of the TR1 and center tapping of the primary winding of TR2 are provided with the voltage divider biasing network formed by resistor R1 and R2 along with the power supply VCC connected for its operation. Its role is to adjust the operating point of transistor T1 as well as T2 in the active region exactly on the center of the load line, so that it is going to work as a class A power amplifier, so that it is going to allow output current to flow throughout the full AC input cycle. Across the secondary winding of the output transformer, a load is connected which is required to be driven by means of this power amplifier. All these parts are represented. This is the input transformer, this one is the biasing network, whereas these are the push-pull transistor circuitries, this is the output transformer, whereas this one is the load. Friends, let us see how this amplifier circuit works. When input signal to be applied for the amplification, which will develop the output power across secondary, which is out of phase of 180 degree with respect to the center tapping of the secondary winding. If suppose base of transistor T1 receives the positive half cycle with respect to center tapping, base of transistor T2 receives the negative half cycle with respect to center tapping simultaneously, because across secondary winding 180 degree out of phase signal is going to be produced. As the being positive half cycle of the input signal is received by the transistor T1, and transistor T1 is NPN type, emitter base junction is forward biased, it starts conducting the collector current, and collector current IC1 will flow from power supply to the upper half of the secondary winding to the collector of transistor T1. But simultaneously, as base of transistor T2 receives a negative half cycle, as this transistor is also NPN type, transistor emitter base junction of transistor T2 will be reverse biased, so that's why it doesn't conduct any collector current. IC2 is 0. This transistor T1 pushes the current at the output in the upper half of the circuitry, whereas a transistor T2 doesn't conduct, means it pulls the current from the output. As polarity of the AC input signal reverses, that means base of transistor T1, if it receives a negative half cycle with respect to center tapping, and also base of T2 receives a positive half cycle with respect to center tapping, so that now emitter base junction of T1 is reverse biased. This doesn't allow IC1 to conduct, whereas emitter base junction of transistor T2 is forward biased. It allows current to pass through it as IC2. Thus, transistor T2 pushes the current at the output, whereas T1 pulls the current from the output. In this particular condition, when one transistor conducts, other transistor will remain off. When other transistor conduct, previous transistor is going to be remains off. The transistor which remains off, it pulls current back. The transistor which turns on, it will pushes the current at the output. Thus, the difference between IC1 and IC2 flows through the primary winding of the transformer 2, which will develop mutual flux to the secondary winding. It allows current to pass through the speaker. Speaker will convert this current into the audio frequency signal. We are speaking now about the audio frequency signal input. If not, if you connect the load resistance, you will get the power across that particular load. The action of transistor T1 and T2 makes to work this circuit in push-pull manner to amplify the input power signal. Such an amplifier we can call it as it is a class A push-pull power amplifier. Efficiency of this class A push-pull power amplifier is almost all 35% to 25%. That's what we can call it as the class A push-pull power amplifier. Friends, next time we will go for next type of the amplifier known as class B power amplifier.